Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, the topic which we are going to study today is the landscape and building blocks of global legal system. It is the topic of the subject Introduction to Legal System, LLB Part 2nd of 5 years program suggested by University of the Punjab. So the landscape and building blocks of global legal system is basically based on 5 main points and pillars. First of all, let me tell you that what is the basic theme of landscape or building block behind this topic. As you know that landscape means the foundations on which the structure of a building is standing, and similarly the building blocks means the bricks or the pillars on which the structure of a building is built. So in this regard, a legal system has the 5 main pillars, and first of them is rule of law. Rule of law basically is the concept which means that no one is above the law. According to Dicey, no man is exempt from the rules that everyone else follows, and each individual ought to be dealt with as per law. Similarly, the Secretary General of United Nations organization expresses that the rule of law is a guideline of administration in which all people, organizations, and substances, open and private, even including the state itself, are responsible to laws. Similarly, so we can say that a rule of law is a concept of a legal system in which each and every person of the state is treated equally, and no one can escape from the grip of law. The second pillar of the legal system is human rights. Human rights is the concept which came when the human being came in the world. As we already know that law is basically the combination of two words which are rights and obligations. So similarly, the concept of human rights means that a human being, just because of human in nature, has the rights which are the fundamental rights prior to all other things. So the basic, fundamental and natural rights of the human beings are the subject of human rights. So in a legal system, everybody is similarly qualified for the insurance of such human rights. Article 55 of the United Nations Sanctions, it provides that the United Nations shall promote, first, the higher standards of living, full employment, and conditions of economic and social progress and development. And secondly, the United Nations shall promote the solutions of international economic, social health, and related problems. And thirdly, the United Nations shall promote international, cultural, and educational cooperation. And fourthly, the United Nations shall promote universal respect for and observance of human rights and fundamental and freedoms for all without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion. So this one is the concept of human rights. United Nations role with regard to human rights is quite well, because so many countries are on the platform of United Nations and all are the followers of the sanctions and the laws of the United Nations. So in this regard, all over the world we can see that human rights are comparatively equal in all over the world, and specifically the countries who are on the platform of United Nations. Okay. The next pillar or the building block of the legal system is the separation of powers. First of all, we should know that what is meant by the separation of powers and what are basically those powers which should be separated from each other. So there are three powers on a national level. First one is executive, the second one is legislature, and the third one is judiciary. I hope that all the students are well aware of all these powers, that legislature is a department which make laws. Judiciary is the department where the laws are utilized and translated and explained, and to secure the rights and obligations of the people. The references of those laws are used in the courts. And thirdly, the executive means where the laws are implemented, where the final verdicts of the courts are implemented in the form of execution of the judgments and decrees of the court. So the separation of power is again has twofold meanings. First one is all three departments should be independent and there should be no abuse of power. And the second meaning of this concept is that there must be a check on all of the three departments. And this check could be by the way of check of each other, so in the separation of power, the political liberty is to be found only when there is no abuse of power. But constant experience shows us that every man invested with power is liable to abuse it and to carry his authority as far as it will go. And to prevent this abuse, it is necessary from the nature of things that one power should be a check on another. Similarly, in this concept, the Blackstone, who was also concerned with political liberty, said in 1765 that in all tyrannical governments, the right of making and of enforcing the laws is vested in one and same man or the same body of men, and wheresoever these two powers are united together, there can be no liberty. So there should be the separation of all three major powers from each other in order to have the prosper state, in order to get the best results. The next step, the fourth landscape or building block of a global legal system is judicial review. Judicial review is the concept in which the superior courts, for example the high courts and the supreme courts of a state, have the constitutional powers to have a check on the authorities. The judicial review is also called the legal audit, in which the application of the laws with the correct methodology is checked by the superior courts. Judicial review is one of the very important pillar of a legal system, and all over the world, including USA, Europe, and Pakistan also, and all the major states of the world, judicial review has the superior authority. According to judicial review, the laws which are not in accordance with the constitutional framework of the state are changed. This one is the power of a judicial review. Legal review or judicial review is the energy of superior courts in a national legal system to look at the activities of the authoritative, official and managerial arms of the administration and to decide if such activities are reliable with the Constitution or not. Similarly, the Supreme Court's obligation to upset illegal enactment was an important outcome of their sworn pledge of office to uphold the Constitution. The next and the last building block of the global legal system or a national legal system is the executive. As we have already discussed in the topic of separation of powers, that executive is one of the force which implement the laws, which control the all lower authorities of the state, or which manages the state machinery. As we see that a national legal system depends on the concept of separation of power, and the legal system and executive is one of those branches of the legal system also. So let me discuss one of the example of the executive, keeping in view the executive of Pakistan. The executive of Pakistan is comprised of Prime Minister and the President. As we know that Prime Minister is the head of government in Pakistan and the President is the formal head of the state. The Prime Minister is chosen by individuals from the National Assembly The applicants are individuals from the assembly and are named by the assembly individuals. When the Prime Minister is chosen, it serves for 5 years term. And when the Prime Minister is chosen, then he make the Council of Ministers. Such ministers are the individuals which are chosen from the National Assembly and the Senate also. And these ministers are selected or chosen keeping in view the specialization in the relevant fields, for example, water and power, science and innovation, oil and characteristic assets, railroads, etc., etc. So these ministers are basically the heads of the departments, or we can say that these ministers are the heads of the executives, the administrations. Similarly, the president is also chosen 2 or 3 months after the Prime Minister by an appointive school comprising of individuals from Senate and National Assemblies and Provincial Assemblies. President also serves 5 years. President has the duties including the selecting the main, equity and remaining judges of the Supreme Court also. So we have discussed in this concept that executive or basically the authoritative bodies which administer the mechanism of the state, which administer the different departments, and finally executives are also responsible to implement the laws. So in this regard, we have discussed that there are 5 main pillars or landscapes or building blocks of a legal system, which are the rule of law, the human rights, the separation of powers, judicial review, and executives. Hope all the students have understood the basic theme of the concept of separation of powers. Hope for all the best. It is the end of our this lecture now. Thanks a lot for the listening. Goodbye.